The stars were quiet that night over Meridian Colony. It was a small human settlement built on the edge of known space far from Earth. Families lived there. Children played in the streets. Farmers grew food in large domes protected from the cold outside. Nobody in Meridian Colony expected anything bad to happen. They believed they were safe. Meridian Colony was only 20 years old. Humans had built it after finding a habitable planet called Visa 9. The planet had clean air, fertile soil, and calm weather. Slowly, thousands of people moved there to start new lives. They built schools, hospitals, and small factories. It was peaceful. It was simple. It was home. But far away, in the deep dark of space, something was watching them. The Krill Dominion was an ancient alien empire. They had existed for over 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of planets across the galaxy. Their ships were massive, their weapons advanced, and their armies disciplined. To the Krill, war was not a tragedy, it was a tool, a method of expansion, a way of life. The Krill had a simple rule. Any species weaker than them did not deserve to keep their land. If a species could not defend itself, it did not deserve freedom. This rule had never failed them. Every species they had encountered had either surrendered quickly or been erased completely. Now their scouts had found something new. A small, fragile species called humans, inside a massive Krill warship called the Vantar Reach. A high commander named General Threx studied reports about the human colony. He was tall, with gray skin, sharp eyes, and a cold expression. He had commanded 100 invasions. He had seen 100 species fall. "Tell me about them," Threx said to his advisor, a smaller Krill officer named Zeal. Zeal activated a hologram. It showed images of Meridian Colony, small buildings, unarmed civilians, simple machines. "They call themselves humans, General. Weak technology, no advanced weapons, no large military. Their colony has less than 10,000 people. Local defense systems are outdated. This will be an easy conquest." Threx smiled, a cruel smile that showed his sharp teeth. "Another easy planet, just like the others. There is something odd, though," Zeal added. "Their homeworld, Earth, has a strange history. Many wars among themselves. Records show great violence in their past, centuries of conflict, resistance, and rebuilding. But this colony seems peaceful. No military presence detected." Threx waved his hand, dismissing the warning. "It does not matter. A species that fights itself is not dangerous to us. It only proves they are primitive and unorganized. Prepare the fleet. We attack at dawn, their time." Zeal bowed and left to give the orders, and none of the Krill knew the truth. They did not understand what those centuries of human conflict had created. They did not understand what human beings were capable of when pushed too far. They were about to find out. At dawn on Meridian Colony, the sky turned red. It was not the sunrise. It was fire. Krill warships descended from orbit like a swarm of metal locusts. Their engines roared, shaking windows across the colony. People ran outside, confused, looking up at giant shapes blocking the morning sky. "What is that?" a young girl asked her mother, pointing upward. Her mother did not answer. She simply grabbed her daughter's hand and ran. Sirens began to wail across the colony. Old warning systems, built for storms, not invasions. Nobody had prepared for this. Nobody believed it could happen. The first wave of Krill soldiers landed in the central square. They wore heavy black armor, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They did not speak. They did not warn anyone. They simply began to fire. Screams filled the streets. People fell as energy blasts tore through buildings and bodies alike. A father shielded his son with his own body, only to be vaporized instantly. A group of colony guards, armed with simple rifles, tried to fight back, but their weapons could not even scratch Krill armor. Commander Elias Ward, the head of colony security, watched in horror from the control tower. He had trained for small emergencies, fires, storms, equipment failures. Nothing had prepared him for this. "This is Commander Ward. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces requesting immediate reinforcements." He shouted into his communicator, but the signal was weak. Meridian Colony's communication array was outdated, barely able to send messages beyond the local system, let alone all the way to Earth. Through the window, Ward saw dozens of Krill soldiers marching through the streets, destroying everything in their path. Buildings collapsed, homes burned. People who tried to run were cut down without mercy. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. In the medical center, Dr. Sarah Voss worked frantically to save the wounded. Blood covered the floor. The wounded came in faster than she and her small staff could treat them. A young boy, no older than 10, lay on a table, badly injured from falling debris. "Stay with me," Sarah whispered, trying to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me, please." Outside, the sounds of destruction grew louder. Energy blasts, screaming, the crash of collapsing buildings. A soldier burst through the medical center doors, not Krill but human. It was Sergeant Marcus Reyes, one of the colony's small defense force, his uniform torn and bloodied. "Doctor, we have to move the wounded. The Krill are advancing toward this sector," he shouted. "We can't move them all. Some are too critical," Sarah shouted back. Marcus looked at the wounded around him. Dozens of innocent people, most of them civilians, some children. His jaw tightened. He had joined the defense force to protect people from storms and accidents, never imagining he would face an enemy like this. "Then we hold this position," he said firmly. "As long as I'm breathing, they don't get past this door." General Threx watched the invasion from orbit, observing through cameras on his soldier's armor. He saw human resistance, weak, disorganized, but strangely persistent. Even as they were being destroyed, humans continued fighting, continued protecting each other, continued refusing to run away completely. "Strange creatures," Threx muttered. "They know they cannot win, yet they do not stop fighting." Zeal, standing beside him, frowned slightly. "Perhaps it is not about winning, General. Perhaps it is about something else." Threx ignored the comment. To him it was simply proof of primitive thinking, creatures too foolish to understand when they were beaten. By midday, Meridian Colony was in ruins. Buildings burned. Streets were littered with debris and the bodies of the fallen. The Krill had taken control of the colony's central systems, disabling what little defense remained. Commander Ward, badly wounded, crawled toward the communication tower. His vision was blurry, his body weak from blood loss, but he had one final task to complete. He reached the console and activated the long-range emergency beacon, a system built to send a distress signal directly to Earth Command, reserved only for the most extreme emergencies. With shaking hands, he recorded a final message. "This is Commander Elias Ward of Meridian Colony. We were attacked without warning by an unknown alien force. They call themselves the Krill. Our defenses could not stop them. Most of the colony is gone." He coughed, blood on his lips, but continued. "They think we will surrender. They think this is over. But Earth," his voice grew stronger despite his pain, "do not let this go unanswered. Do not let them think humanity kneels. Whoever hears this message, make them understand what they've done. Make them understand who they attacked." His hand trembled as he pressed the final button, sending the message across the stars toward Earth. "Show them," he whispered, "what humanity really is." The screen went dark as Krill soldiers broke through the tower's door behind him. 3 days later, the message reached Earth United Command, a massive space station orbiting Earth, home to humanity's military leadership and defense fleet. Admiral Diane Cross, commander of Earth's defense fleet, stood in the command center as the message played. The room was silent as Ward's final words echoed through the speakers. Officers, soldiers, and analysts stood frozen, listening to the desperate final transmission of a dying man. When the message ended, silence filled the room. Admiral Cross closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the weight of what she had just heard. An entire colony destroyed without warning. Thousands of innocent lives lost. Men, women, and children slaughtered by an enemy that had never even bothered to communicate first. "Confirm the location of Meridian Colony," she said, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. "Confirmed, Admiral. Long-range scans show the colony has gone completely silent. No life signs detected in the central districts. Cross turned to her officers, her expression hardening. Gather the full council, immediately. Within the hour, Earth's military leadership assembled in the war room. Generals, admirals, scientists, and political leaders. Screens displayed images of Meridian Colony's destruction, captured by a surviving satellite. Ruined buildings, burned fields, streets stained with the aftermath of slaughter. General Marcus Hale, a veteran commander known for his calm and calculated leadership, studied the images with a grim expression. They didn't send a warning, he said. They didn't demand surrender. They didn't ask for resources or territory. They simply attacked and killed everyone they found. An act of pure aggression, Admiral Cross confirmed. Whoever these Krill are, they clearly believe we are too weak to fight back. A younger officer spoke up, his voice tense. Sir, our fleet is nowhere near ready for a war like this. Our best ships are decades behind what our scans show of Krill technology. The room fell into uneasy silence. It was true. Earth's military had grown during peaceful decades, focused on exploration and colonization, not large-scale interstellar war. Compared to the Krill fleet's power, humanity's defenses seemed hopelessly outmatched. General Hale, however, did not look defeated. He looked at the images once more, the burned homes, the destroyed hospitals, the final message of Commander Ward's sacrifice, and something hardened in his eyes. They think we will surrender because we are weak, Hale said slowly. They think a few destroyed colonies will make us kneel. He turned to face the entire room, his voice rising with quiet determination. But they don't know our history. They don't know what happens when humanity is pushed into a corner. We have fought wars against each other for centuries, and still, we always rebuilt. We always adapted. We always found a way to survive. He looked directly at Admiral Cross. This is no longer just a rescue mission. This is no longer just defense. This is war. Admiral Cross nodded slowly, her expression resolute. Then let's make sure the Krill understand exactly what they've started. Far away, aboard the Krill flagship Vantar Reach, General Threx received a report from his scouts. Human military forces were mobilizing, ships being prepared, defenses being reinforced, soldiers being called to arms. Threx laughed, a low, mocking sound. Look at this. The insects are trying to organize a defense. Zeal studied the reports more carefully, his expression less confident than his general's. Their mobilization speed is unusual. Normally, defeated species take much longer to respond. They are gathering faster than expected. It doesn't matter, Threx said dismissively. No matter how fast they move, they cannot match our technology. We have conquered species with far greater resources than these humans. This will be no different. He turned to face the massive view screen, showing the vast Krill fleet stationed just beyond human territory, waiting for the order to advance further. Send word to the Dominion Council, Threx commanded. Tell them the human species will be fully subdued within the cycle. Prepare the main invasion fleet. It's time to finish what we started. Zeal hesitated for a moment before responding. Something about the human resistance at Meridian Colony bothered him. The way they fought even when hopeless, the way they protected each other until the very end. It reminded him of old Dominion records, warnings about a species designation from long ago. Unpredictable, resilient, dangerous when provoked. But he said nothing. Threx would not listen. Not yet. As the Krill fleet prepared to launch a massive assault deeper into human territory, they had no idea what they were truly awakening. They saw humanity as weak. They saw humanity as an easy conquest. They believed silence meant surrender and grief meant defeat. They were wrong. Back on Earth, shipyards worked around the clock. Soldiers trained harder than ever before. Scientists raced to upgrade weapons and defenses. Every single person, from farmers to engineers, contributed to the effort. The tragedy of Meridian Colony had not broken humanity's spirit. It had ignited it. In the command center, Admiral Cross stood before a massive screen showing Earth's growing fleet, small but determined, preparing for the battles ahead. Beside her, General Hale watched with quiet resolve. They took innocent lives without warning, Cross said softly. They thought we would break. Hale's eyes hardened as he stared at the image of the Krill fleet moving through human space. They were wrong. The war had begun, and humanity would not stop fighting, not until the Krill understood completely and painfully exactly who they had chosen to attack. 6 months had passed since the destruction of Meridian Colony. Earth had changed. What was once a peaceful, slow-moving civilization had transformed into something else entirely. Factories that once built farming equipment now built warships. Universities that once taught peaceful sciences now trained young engineers to design weapons. Every city on Earth felt the weight of the coming war. Admiral Diane Cross stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest flagship, the Resolute. Through the massive window, she could see dozens of new warships being assembled in orbit, their metal hulls gleaming under the sunlight. It was a sight that would have seemed impossible just half a year ago. Humanity had never built so many ships so quickly. But then again, humanity had never faced a threat like this before. Beside her stood General Marcus Hale, watching the same view with a serious expression. 6 months, Hale said quietly. 6 months since Meridian Colony. And we're still not ready. We're more ready than we were, Cross replied. But you're right. The Krill fleet is still far ahead of us in raw power. If they attack with everything they have, we will lose in open battle. Hale nodded slowly. Then we don't fight them in open battle. We fight them our way. In a private training facility outside New Chicago, a young officer named Captain Elena Voss ran through a combat simulation for the 10th time that day. She was the niece of Dr. Sarah Voss, the doctor who had died protecting wounded civilians during the Meridian Colony massacre. Elena had joined the military 3 years earlier, long before the attack, wanting to serve her planet. Now, she had a much deeper reason to fight. She adjusted her weapon and stared at the holographic display in front of her, showing a simulated Krill warship. Its shields were strong. Its weapons were powerful. Standard tactics would never work against it. Again, she said to the simulation computer. The training program restarted. Elena moved carefully using cover, timing her attacks, searching for weaknesses in the enemy's defense pattern. She had studied every piece of data recovered from Meridian Colony's destruction. Every recording, every scrap of information about Krill technology and behavior. She had noticed something important. The Krill were powerful but predictable. They followed strict military patterns, trusting their strength rather than creativity. It was a weakness, one that humanity could exploit. After the simulation ended, her mentor, an older officer named Colonel James Okafor, walked into the room. He had spent 30 years in the military, training soldiers, and had personally volunteered to help prepare Earth's new resistance fleet. You've been running that simulation for 6 hours straight, Okafor said. I need to understand them, Elena replied. I need to know how to beat them. Okafor studied her for a moment. He recognized the same fire in her eyes that had unified people across Earth over the past 6 months. Anger, determination, and unbreakable resolve. You remind me of your aunt, he said quietly. She never gave up, even in her final moments. Elena's jaw tightened. Then I won't give up either. Meanwhile, deep in Krill territory, General Threx stood aboard the Vantar Reach reviewing reports from his scouts. The human military buildup continued to grow at an alarming pace. New ships, new weapons, new defensive systems appearing faster than expected. They continue preparing for war, Zeal reported, standing beside him. Their industrial capacity has increased significantly. Multiple new shipyards detected across their solar system. Threx frowned slightly, though his confidence remained unshaken. It doesn't matter how many ships they build. Quantity means nothing against superior technology. Perhaps, Zeal said carefully. But their tactics at Meridian Colony were unusual. Their soldiers fought even when victory was impossible. Some of our units suffered unexpected losses during that operation. Threx waved his hand dismissively. Minor losses. Insignificant against our full military strength. He turned to the massive view screen displaying the outer edge of human territory. Prepare a second fleet. smaller than our full invasion force, but powerful enough to crush any resistance. We will test their new defenses before committing our main forces. Where should the fleet target, General? Threx studied a star map showing human colonies and outposts. His eyes settled on a mid-sized research outpost called Kestrel Station, positioned on the edge of human territory. There, he said. Send the fleet to Kestrel Station, destroy their defenses, then continue toward Earth itself. Let us see how these humans respond when their strength is truly tested. Kestrel Station was a research and defense outpost, much smaller than Meridian Colony had been, but heavily fortified since the attack 6 months earlier. Unlike Meridian Colony, this outpost had been prepared for war. Defensive cannons lined its outer hull. Shield generators protected its core structures. A small fleet of new human warships stood guard nearby. Among the defenders was Elena Voss, now promoted to lead a squadron of fighter pilots. She stood in the station's command center, staring at the tactical display, watching for any sign of enemy movement. Enemy contact detected, an officer announced suddenly. Multiple large signatures approaching from the outer system. Elena's heart pounded, but she remained focused. This was the moment she had trained for. All squadrons prepare for combat, she said through her communicator. Remember your training. Remember what they did to Meridian Colony. The Krill fleet arrived smaller than the force that had destroyed Meridian Colony, but still powerful. 5 massive warships, each far larger than anything in Earth's current fleet. Aboard the lead Krill ship, Commander Vrail, a confident young officer eager to prove himself to General Threx, studied the human defenses with mild amusement. Primitive shields, weak weapons. This will be quick, Vrail said to his crew. Begin the attack. The Krill ships opened fire, their powerful weapons striking Kestrel Station's shields. The station shook violently, alarms blaring throughout its corridors. But unlike Meridian Colony, the shields held. Shields at 80%, an officer reported, holding steady. Elena watched the battle unfold on her display. The Krill ships continued their assault, confident in their overwhelming firepower. But Elena had studied their patterns carefully. She knew they relied on brute strength, rarely adapting their tactics. Squadron Alpha, follow my lead, she commanded, launching her fighter craft from the station's hangar bay. Dozens of small human fighters shot into space, moving in coordinated formations. Unlike the massive, slow-moving Krill warships, these fighters were fast, agile, and difficult to target. What is this? Commander Vrail said, watching in surprise as human fighters swarmed around his ship, striking weak points in its armor that his larger weapons could not easily defend against. Focus fire on their engines and shield generators, Elena ordered her squadron. Just like we practiced, the human fighters moved with precision, striking specific weak points identified through months of careful study. One Krill ship's shield generator exploded, leaving it vulnerable. Another's engine sputtered and failed, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Vrail's confidence began to waver. Increase power to our main weapons. Destroy their fighters. But the human pilots were too fast, too coordinated. They moved unpredictably, refusing to follow simple attack patterns the Krill had expected. Meanwhile, Kestrel Station's defensive cannons targeted the immobilized Krill ships, striking their weakened hulls with precise, concentrated fire. One by one, the Krill warships began to suffer critical damage. This is impossible, Vrail muttered, watching as 2 of his 5 ships became completely disabled. Retreat! Signal the fleet to retreat. The remaining Krill ships pulled back, fleeing the battle in humiliation. It was the first time in centuries that a Krill military force had been forced to retreat from battle. Cheers erupted throughout Kestrel Station's command center as the enemy fleet withdrew. Elena guided her fighter craft back toward the station, her hands still shaking from the intensity of battle, but her heart filled with something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. News of the victory at Kestrel Station spread quickly across Earth. For the first time since Meridian Colony's destruction, humanity had something to celebrate. Proof that the Krill were not invincible. Admiral Cross and General Hale watched the battle reports with quiet satisfaction. They didn't expect real resistance, Hale said. They thought this would be another easy massacre. They were wrong, Cross replied, and now they know it. But both leaders understood this was only the beginning. The battle at Kestrel Station had been a smaller Krill force, a mere test of human strength. The true invasion fleet, the one that had destroyed Meridian Colony, remained far more powerful and far more dangerous. Aboard the Vantar Reach, General Threx received news of the defeat with cold fury. Commander Vrail, having survived the retreat, stood before him, clearly shaken. "How is this possible?" Threx demanded, his voice sharp with anger. "A smaller, weaker force defeated 3 of our warships?" They adapted, General," Vrail explained nervously. "Their fighters targeted weak points with precision. Their tactics were unlike anything documented in our previous conquests." Threx's eyes narrowed dangerously. For the first time since the campaign began, doubt crept into his mind. He had underestimated this species, dismissed their potential as primitive and disorganized. Zeal, standing nearby, spoke carefully. "General, perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach. These humans learn quickly. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered." Threx remained silent for a long moment, staring at the tactical reports showing the humiliating defeat at Kestrel Station. Finally he spoke, his voice cold and determined. "No more small tests. No more probing attacks. Assemble the full invasion fleet. We will crush them with overwhelming force before they can adapt any further. General, our main fleet consists of over 200 warships," Zeal said. "An assault of that scale will leave no room for human resistance." "Exactly," Threx replied coldly. "Send word across the Dominion. Humanity's brief victory will be its last. We move against their homeworld directly. We end this war before it truly begins." Back on Earth, Admiral Cross received confirmation of an approaching Krill fleet, the largest ever detected, far exceeding anything humanity had prepared for. The war room fell silent as officers studied the incoming threat. Over 200 Krill warships, moving directly toward Earth's solar system. "They're not testing us anymore," Hale said grimly. "This is everything they have." Cross turned to her assembled officers, her expression steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Then we give them everything we have as well." Elena Voss, promoted once again for her leadership at Kestrel Station, stood among the officers preparing for the coming battle. She thought of her aunt, of Commander Ward's final message, of every innocent life lost at Meridian Colony. They had proven the Krill could be defeated. Now humanity would have to prove it on a much larger, much more dangerous scale. As Earth's fleet prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of humanity, one thought echoed through every mind, every heart, across the entire planet. They had underestimated humanity once. They would not get the chance to underestimate it again. The Krill fleet moved through space like a wall of death. 200 warships, stretching for miles, their dark hulls blotting out the stars behind them. It was the largest military force the Dominion had ever assembled for a single campaign. General Threx stood at the command deck of the Vantar Reach, watching the human solar system grow larger on the view screen with each passing hour. "Let them see us coming," Threx said coldly. "Let them feel the fear of what awaits them." Behind him, Zeal studied the tactical readings carefully. Something about this approach bothered him, though he could not explain exactly why. The humans at Kestrel Station had shown unexpected skill, unexpected creativity. A species capable of such adaptation would surely know they could not win a direct confrontation against a fleet this size. "General," Zeal said carefully, "should we not expect some form of unconventional resistance? Their victory at Kestrel Station relied on unpredictable tactics." Threx's expression hardened. "Let them try. No tactic, no strategy can overcome a fleet of this magnitude. We will not repeat the mistake of underestimating their numbers. We simply overwhelm them completely." Yet even as he spoke the words, a small doubt lingered in the back of his mind, a doubt he refused to acknowledge. On Earth, the war room buzzed with tense activity. Admiral Cross stood before a massive tactical display, watching the approaching Krill fleet's projected path. General Hale stood beside her, his face grim but focused. 200 warships, Cross said quietly. Our entire fleet combined is less than 60. If we meet them head-on, we lose, Hale said bluntly. We need something else, something they won't expect. Elena Voss, now a respected squadron leader, stepped forward from among the gathered officers. She had spent weeks studying every piece of data from the Kestrel Station battle, searching for any advantage humanity could use. Sir, permission to speak, she said. Cross nodded. Go ahead, Captain Voss. The Krill rely on strength and numbers, Elena explained. They believe overwhelming force guarantees victory. But at Kestrel Station, they struggled against precise, unpredictable tactics. If we try to fight them in open battle, we lose immediately. But if we lure them into a trap, somewhere their numbers become a disadvantage instead of an advantage, we might have a chance. Hale studied the star map, considering her words carefully. The asteroid field near Titan's orbit, he said slowly. Dense, difficult to navigate. Their larger ships would struggle to maneuver freely. Exactly, Elena said. If we retreat toward the asteroid field, appearing weak and disorganized, they'll follow, confident of an easy victory. But once inside, their numbers become a liability. Their ships will struggle to move efficiently, while our smaller, faster ships can strike with precision. Cross studied the plan for a long moment. It was risky, incredibly risky. If it failed, humanity's remaining fleet would be completely destroyed, leaving Earth defenseless. But if it worked, it could change the entire course of the war. We don't have a better option, Cross finally said. Prepare the fleet. We move at first light. As Earth's remaining forces prepared for the coming battle, a heavy silence settled over the planet. Every soldier, every pilot, every officer understood the stakes. This was not simply a battle for territory or resources. It was a battle for humanity's very survival. In the personal quarters aboard the Resolute, Elena Voss sat quietly, staring at an old photograph of her aunt, Dr. Sarah Voss. She thought of Meridian Colony, of the countless innocent lives lost, of Commander Ward's final message urging humanity to show the Krill who they truly were. A knock came at her door. Colonel Okafor entered, his expression serious but calm. You've done remarkable work, Captain, he said. Your strategy might be the only thing standing between the Krill and Earth's destruction. Elena nodded slowly. I just don't want any more innocent people to die because we weren't ready. Okafor placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Whatever happens tomorrow, know this. You've already proven something important. You've proven that humanity will never simply kneel before an enemy, no matter how powerful they seem. Elena managed a small, determined smile. Then let's make sure they understand that completely. The following morning, Earth's fleet moved into position near the edge of the solar system, appearing disorganized and vulnerable, exactly as planned. Admiral Cross commanded from the Resolute, watching carefully as Krill sensors detected their presence. Aboard the Vantar Reach, General Threx observed the human fleet's positioning with growing confidence. Look at them, he said, almost amused. Scattered, disorganized, clearly preparing to retreat, just as expected. Orders, General? Zeal asked. Advance the full fleet, Threx commanded. Crush their defenses completely. Let this be the final battle of this pointless conflict. The massive Krill fleet surged forward, moving directly toward Earth's scattered defenses. As planned, the human ships began retreating, appearing panicked and disorganized, drawing the Krill fleet deeper into the solar system, directly toward the dense asteroid field near Titan's orbit. They're taking the bait, Cross said quietly, watching the tactical display aboard the Resolute. Continue the retreat pattern, lead them in. The Krill fleet, confident of an easy victory, pursued aggressively, their massive warships moving in tight formation directly into the asteroid field's outer edge. General, our sensors show significant obstacles ahead, Zeal warned, noticing the dense asteroid field for the first time. Recommend caution. Threx waved off the warning dismissively. Their fleet is retreating in panic. We finish this now, before they regroup. It was the mistake Elena had predicted. As the Krill fleet entered the asteroid field, their massive ships immediately struggled to maneuver efficiently. Sensors became less reliable amid the dense rock formations. Communication between ships grew difficult. The overwhelming size advantage the Krill relied upon suddenly became a serious liability. "Now," Cross commanded. Human fighter squadrons, previously hidden among the asteroids, emerged suddenly from multiple directions, striking the confused Krill fleet with precise, coordinated attacks. Elena led her squadron directly toward the flagship's escort vessels, targeting weak points identified through months of careful study. "Multiple contacts. We're under attack," a Krill officer shouted aboard the Vantar Reach. Threx's confidence shattered instantly. "Impossible. How did they—" "They lured us here deliberately, General," Zeal shouted urgently. "This was never a retreat. It was a trap." Chaos erupted throughout the Krill fleet. Their massive warships, designed for open combat, struggled desperately to navigate the dense asteroid field while simultaneously defending against relentless human attacks. Ships collided with asteroids, weapon systems malfunctioned amid the confusion, and coordinated Krill formations broke apart entirely. Elena's squadron moved with precision, striking engine systems and shield generators exactly as they had practiced. One by one, Krill warships became disabled, drifting helplessly among the asteroids. "Concentrate fire on the flagship's escorts," Elena commanded. "Isolate the Vantar Reach." Aboard the Krill flagship, Threx watched in horror as his once invincible fleet crumbled around him. Ships he had commanded for decades, warriors he had led through countless victories, were being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive and weak. "This cannot be happening," he muttered, his composure finally breaking. "Full retreat. All remaining ships, retreat immediately." But retreat proved difficult amid the chaos of the asteroid field. Confused, disorganized, and repeatedly struck by precise human attacks, the Krill fleet suffered catastrophic losses. Dozens of warships were destroyed or disabled within hours, a devastating blow to what had once been considered an unstoppable force. As the battle raged, Elena found herself directly targeted by a squadron of Krill fighters, desperately trying to protect their retreating flagship. Her fighter craft shook violently as enemy fire struck dangerously close. "Captain Voss, your shields are critical," her co-pilot warned urgently. Elena gritted her teeth, memories of Meridian Colony flashing through her mind. The destruction, the loss, Commander Ward's desperate final message. She would not fail now, not when humanity's survival depended on victory. "Divert all power to weapons," she commanded firmly. "We finish this." With skillful precision, Elena guided her fighter directly through a narrow gap between asteroids, evading enemy fire while positioning herself perfectly to strike the pursuing Krill fighters. One by one, she disabled them, her training and determination proving decisive in the intense confrontation. As the last enemy fighter retreated in defeat, Elena allowed herself a brief moment of relief, though the larger battle continued to rage around her. Aboard the Vantar Reach, Threx watched helplessly as his fleet suffered irreparable losses. Ships continued exploding around him, the chaos of the asteroid field amplifying the devastating human assault. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar and deeply unsettling: fear. "General, we've lost over half our fleet," Zeal reported urgently, his voice strained. "If we remain here any longer, we risk losing everything." Threx's jaw tightened, humiliation and fury mixing within him. He had underestimated humanity completely, dismissed their potential, and now faced consequences far beyond anything he had anticipated. "Order immediate retreat," he finally commanded, his voice heavy with reluctant defeat. "All remaining ships, withdraw from the system immediately." The remaining Krill warships, battered and disorganized, began retreating from the asteroid field, abandoning the assault entirely. It was an unprecedented defeat for the Dominion, a humiliation Threx knew would not be easily forgiven by his superiors. As the shattered remnants of the Krill invasion fleet retreated into deep space, cheers erupted throughout Earth's remaining ships. Admiral Cross watched the retreating enemy fleet with quiet satisfaction, though she understood clearly that the war was far from over. "They'll return," she said softly to General Hale standing beside her, angrier, more determined than ever. Hale nodded, his expression serious despite their hard-earned victory. "Then we'll be ready for them again." Back aboard the Vantar Reach, deep within Krill territory, General Threx stood in stunned silence, staring at reports detailing the catastrophic losses suffered during the failed invasion. Over half his fleet destroyed, humiliated by a species he had once considered insignificant and weak. Zeal approached cautiously, sensing his commander's simmering anger and humiliation. "General, the Dominion Council will demand answers," Zeal said carefully. "How should we respond?" Threx remained silent for a long moment, his mind racing with anger, humiliation, and growing respect for an enemy he had gravely underestimated. Finally, he spoke, his voice cold and filled with quiet determination. "Tell the Council this war is not over," he said slowly. "Humanity has won a single battle, nothing more. We will return, stronger and better prepared. And this time we will show no mercy whatsoever." As the shattered Krill fleet retreated deeper into space, preparing for a future confrontation, humanity celebrated its hard-earned victory, yet understood clearly that the true battle for their survival had only just begun. Somewhere among the stars, both species prepared quietly for what would become humanity's final and most decisive confrontation with the Krill Dominion. The war was far from finished. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Titan's asteroid field. Earth had not wasted a single day of that time. Every shipyard worked without rest. Every soldier trained harder than before. Every scientist pushed the limits of human technology, studying captured Krill wreckage from the battle, learning their weaknesses, improving human weapons and shields. The victory at Titan had given humanity something priceless, proof that the Krill could bleed, and hope that they could be defeated completely. Admiral Diane Cross stood aboard the Resolute, watching new warships take shape in Earth's orbit. They were faster, stronger, and built with lessons learned from every battle fought so far. Beside her, General Marcus Hale studied reports detailing Krill fleet movements at the edge of human space. "Scouts confirm it," Hale said grimly. "Threx is building a new fleet, bigger than before. This time they're not testing us. This time, they're ending it." Cross nodded slowly. "Then we make sure it's their end, not ours." Deep within Krill territory, General Threx stood aboard a brand new flagship, larger and more powerful than the Vantar Reach. The humiliating defeat at Titan had haunted him for months, fueling a burning need for revenge. He had spent every day since then preparing for this moment, gathering the largest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled, determined to erase the shame of his previous failure. "General, the fleet is ready," Zeal reported, standing at his side. Zeal had changed since the battle at Titan. He no longer doubted human capability. He respected it, even feared it slightly, but his loyalty to Threx and the Dominion remained absolute. "Good," Threx said coldly, staring at the star map showing Earth's solar system. "This time, there will be no tricks, no traps. We strike directly at their homeworld, overwhelming their defenses completely before they can prepare any counterattack." 300 warships, General," Zeal confirmed. "Our largest invasion force in over 1,000 years." Threx's eyes narrowed with cold determination. "Then let us finish what should have ended months ago." On Earth, final preparations continued as news arrived of the approaching Krill fleet, larger and more dangerous than anything humanity had faced before. The war room fell into tense silence as officers studied the incoming threat. 300 ships, Hale said quietly, staring at the massive fleet approaching Earth's solar system. "Nearly double what we faced at Titan." Elena Voss, now promoted to commander, stood among the assembled officers, her expression steady despite the overwhelming odds. She had lost count of the battles she had fought since Meridian Colony's destruction, but her resolve remained unshaken. "They're not retreating this time," Elena said. "They're not testing our defenses. They're coming for everything." Cross turned to her officers, her voice calm but firm. Then we give them everything we have, and more. Humanity's entire military strength gathered above Earth. Every warship, every fighter squadron, every soldier prepared to defend their home world. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, yet still smaller than the approaching Krill force. But this time, humanity was not scattered or unprepared. This time, they stood united. As the Krill fleet approached Earth's solar system, General Threx studied the human defenses with growing confidence. Unlike previous encounters, humanity's fleet stood directly between the Krill and Earth, refusing to retreat or hide. They stand their ground, Zeal observed. No retreat, no trickery this time. It doesn't matter, Threx replied coldly. Their numbers remain insignificant against our full strength. This ends today. The massive Krill fleet surged forward, weapons charged, ready to overwhelm Earth's defenses completely. Aboard the Resolute, Admiral Cross watched the approaching enemy with steady resolve. All ships, hold formation, she commanded. Remember why we fight. Remember Meridian Colony. Remember every innocent life lost. Today we make sure their sacrifice was not in vain. The two fleets clashed violently at the edge of Earth's solar system, unleashing the largest battle humanity had ever fought. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as warships exchanged devastating firepower. Human fighters swarmed through the chaos, striking Krill weak points with precision, learned through months of hard-fought battles. Elena led her squadron directly into the heart of the conflict, coordinating precise attacks against Krill capital ships. Focus fire on their shield generators, just like Kestrel Station. Despite their careful preparation, humanity's forces struggled against the sheer size of the Krill fleet. Ships were lost on both sides, the battle growing increasingly desperate as it stretched on for hours. Aboard his flagship, Threx watched the battle unfold, his confidence slowly returning as Krill numbers began overwhelming human defenses. Continue the advance, he commanded. Break through their formation, reach Earth's orbit. Slowly, steadily, the Krill fleet began pushing through humanity's defenses, their sheer numbers proving difficult to overcome despite Earth's improved tactics and technology. In the heat of battle, Elena's fighter craft suffered critical damage, forcing her to retreat toward the Resolute for emergency repairs. As she boarded the flagship, she found Admiral Cross and General Hale studying the worsening battle with grim expressions. "We're losing ground," Hale said. "Their numbers are simply too great." Elena studied the tactical display carefully, searching desperately for any weakness they might have overlooked. Suddenly, something caught her attention. A pattern in Krill ship formations, a vulnerability she hadn't noticed before. "Admiral, look here," Elena said urgently, pointing at the display. "Their formation is built around protecting Threx's flagship. If we can isolate and disable the flagship directly, their entire fleet's coordination could collapse." Cross studied the suggestion carefully. It was risky, incredibly dangerous, a direct assault against the most heavily defended ship in the entire Krill fleet. But with humanity's defenses crumbling, it might be their only remaining option. "It's a desperate move," Hale said quietly. "We're already in a desperate situation," Elena replied firmly. "Let me lead the assault, personally." Cross studied Elena for a long moment, recognizing the same unbreakable determination she had shown since Meridian Colony's destruction. Finally, she nodded. "Take your best pilots," Cross said. "End this, Commander Voss." Elena assembled her most skilled and trusted pilots, briefing them quickly on their dangerous mission. Together, they launched directly into the heart of the battle, weaving skillfully through intense enemy fire, targeting the heavily defended Krill flagship. Aboard the flagship, Threx received urgent warnings of the incoming assault. "General, human fighters are moving directly toward our position." Threx's confidence wavered slightly. "Divert additional escorts to defend the flagship immediately." But Elena's squadron moved with precision and skill, evading Krill defenses through carefully coordinated maneuvers. Explosions rocked the flagship's outer defenses as Elena's team systematically disabled its protective escorts. "Commander, we're through their outer defenses," one of Elena's pilots reported. Target their main shield generator, Elena commanded firmly. This ends now. With careful precision, Elena guided her fighter directly toward the flagship's primary shield generator, unleashing a concentrated barrage of firepower. The generator exploded violently, causing the massive ship's shields to collapse entirely. Aboard the flagship, alarms blared urgently as Threx watched his defenses crumble. Impossible! How could they? Their tactics are unlike anything we've encountered, General, Zeal shouted urgently. We must retreat immediately. But it was too late. With the flagship's shields down, Earth's remaining forces concentrated their firepower directly on Threx's vessel, striking critical systems with devastating precision. Without its flagship's coordination, the Krill fleet's formation began collapsing into chaos. Ships that once moved with disciplined precision now struggled to coordinate effectively, providing humanity's forces the opening they desperately needed. Their fleet is breaking apart, Hale reported excitedly aboard the Resolute. Continue the assault. Push them back. Human warships surged forward, exploiting the chaos and confusion within Krill ranks. One by one, disoriented Krill ships were destroyed or forced into retreat, the tide of battle turning decisively in humanity's favor. Aboard his crippled flagship, General Threx watched helplessly as his once mighty fleet crumbled into disarray. Smoke filled the command deck, sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the sounds of alarms echoed ominously throughout the ship. General, we've lost control of the fleet, Zeal reported, his voice filled with resignation. Our forces are in full retreat. Threx remained silent, staring blankly at the chaos unfolding around him. He had underestimated humanity completely, dismissed their resilience and adaptability, and now faced total, humiliating defeat. Suddenly, Elena's fighter appeared directly outside the flagship's damaged bridge viewport, her weapons locked precisely onto the vulnerable command center. General Threx, Elena's voice came clearly through the ship's communication system, calm yet firm. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed. Surrender now, or face complete destruction. Threx stared at the small human fighter craft outside his viewport, a symbol of everything he had once dismissed as weak and insignificant. Slowly, painfully, he realized the truth. Humanity was never weak. They were simply underestimated. After a long, tense silence, Threx finally spoke, his voice heavy with reluctant defeat. Transmit surrender signals to all remaining Krill forces. This battle is over. Word of the Krill surrender spread quickly throughout Earth's fleet, followed by cheers of relief and celebration. Humanity had achieved the impossible, defeating an empire that had once seemed unstoppable, protecting their homeworld from complete destruction. Aboard the Resolute, Admiral Cross watched as the remaining Krill ships withdrew peacefully, their invasion completely defeated. Beside her, General Hale allowed himself a rare, relieved smile. We did it, Hale said softly. We actually did it, Cross nodded, though her expression remained thoughtful. We did, but we should never forget what it cost us to get here. Elena returned safely to the Resolute, greeted warmly by her fellow officers and crew. Yet her thoughts drifted back to Meridian Colony, to her Aunt Sarah, to Commander Ward's final message, and to every innocent life lost throughout humanity's desperate struggle for survival. Standing quietly on the observation deck, Elena watched as the shattered remnants of the Krill fleet retreated into deep space, carrying with them a message that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had been tested, pushed to the very edge of destruction, and had risen stronger than ever before. Weeks later, Earth United Command received word that the Krill Dominion Council had formally ended hostilities, choosing peace rather than risking further humiliating defeat. It was not the same as celebration. Too many were gone for that. But it was something else. Relief. Pride. A quiet certainty that had not existed before the war began. At a memorial ceremony held at the rebuilt Meridian Colony, Admiral Cross addressed a gathered crowd of soldiers, survivors, and grieving families. Elena stood among them, wearing her commander's uniform, a small photograph of her aunt held gently in her hand. They massacred innocent people, Cross said, her voice steady and clear. They believed we would surrender out of fear. They believed our grief would become weakness. She paused, looking out over the crowd, over the faces of those who had lost everything yet still stood strong. They were wrong. The crowd remained silent, honoring the memory of those lost yet united by a shared sense of hard-earned strength and resilience. Elena looked up toward the stars, thinking of her aunt, of Commander Ward, of every soldier and civilian who had given their lives throughout the long, painful struggle. Humanity had faced annihilation, and had not merely survived, they had triumphed. As the ceremony ended, Elena whispered softly to herself, echoing the words that had inspired an entire species to rise against impossible odds. Never mistake our silence for surrender. Never mistake our mercy for weakness. Above her the stars shone brightly, a silent reminder of the sacrifices made and the resilience proven. Humanity had endured. Humanity had answered. And humanity would never be underestimated again. The end.